G'day, how you doing? Hopefully doing very well, keeping healthy and safe. I am doing absolutely ecstatic over here. It's very hot in Brisbane, but I know I'll be able to survive it. A couple months ago, I actually went down to BsianTech and meet this new Lenovo Legion Go before it was launched, and I had a mind-blowing and wonderful experience on this new handheld gaming device. And I finally got it here on this channel to really give it a good thorough test, and I can tell you that the experience has just got better and better. There are a few improvements which I'll mention later in this video, but geez, the experience has been fantastic. I've spent a lot of hours gaming on this device and actually having a good play with it as well. Geez, such a great device so far. And one of the things I noticed when I was actually down in Sydney having this first experience on this, that besides the actual performance, I actually noticed the heat was very well controlled and very, very quiet, which I will be doing later in the test. You will see this later in the video. And that the nice functionality of actually having the controls be detached, and the right controller can actually change to a mouse for FPS modes. Absolute fantastic. Really gives you something unique in this market here that no other handheld gaming device has got. But it actually has Windows loaded. So unlike other channels who are going to review this as a gaming device, I'm going to actually review it as if it could be a laptop replacement, as the specs on it actually beats a lot of other laptops out there for its price. Absolute fantastic. So we're going to look at the temperatures and fan noise. We'll look at some of the features and some of what I can think is improvements on this as well. And I will be putting timestamps along this video so you can skip to different sections so you may be interested to save you time. The Legion Go has an 8.8-inch Quad HD Plus display, which means it has a resolution of 2560 by 1600, and it actually has a very quick, fast refresh rate of 144 Hz. Now, this is probably the first from a handheld device that has this fast refresh rate, so this is great for the FPS gamers. Now, as you can see from here, I've got a scaling of 200. This is actually very readable, very usable, even without having to need to zoom in extra for myself. I do sometimes even run the 175 here. So this is 175, and you can still see that text is actually very readable. I'm actually probably about 45 centimeters away. I can still read this no problems at all here. Now, it also has a 500 nit brightness or luminance, and that means it can work quite happily outdoors. Very nice, this actual display. We've actually got a trackpad on the right hand side. It's very responsive. It is small, but that means you still be able to use it very nicely. And you can actually disable this if you find this annoying. If you accidentally touch it, you can disable it. I'll just show you a little bit later on. Now, as for the actual physical buttons, they actually got very nice ergonomic. I find them actually very nicely handled. I don't find them annoying where they are. We do have a fair few buttons at the back here, on the left and also on the right hand side, and we also got to scroll down this side here. Now, coming back to the actual joysticks, I'm actually not a gaming expert controller, and I don't really normally review them. So for me, in my unprofessional opinion, they feel quite nice and robust. They actually, for me, when I was gaming on them, I actually didn't find them very annoying or found them slow or unreactive to it. They actually were doing quite happily for these two joysticks that I found them. Now, we'll just go through a few of the ports it's got. Now, it does have your volume keys at the top here. We also have a USB-C port here, which is USB 4, which is the faster one, and we also have a micro SD card slot at the top here, and then we've got the exhaust vents, and then we'll have a headphone jack, and there's the power button. This power button does change in lights depending on which power schemes. At the moment, just in the normal balanced power scheme. If you put in performance power scheme, it goes in red. Now, on the bottom here, we actually also have another USB-C port. Now, again, it's USB 4, and that's great to actually have two different sides. So when you actually want to actually plug it in, like at the moment, I've got it using the Kickstand, we were talking about a moment. Kickstand, we can actually plug in a dock. It can still run that. And if you're actually in handheld, you need more extra power, you can actually plug it in the bottom here. So it's nice to have the actual option for on both sides. And Lenovo's thinking there, absolute fantastic here. Now, since I talked about the kickstand, I might just have a quick touch. Now, this is unlike other handhelds, they don't have a kickstand. This one does have a kickstand. You've got a nice little lip here to actually just really quick. Now, how much it goes actually fits very nicely. You can even stand without it in a way, as here. And then as you actually move across here, and I'll just show you to how much you can push. Now, it does have a fair bit of friction here to actually keep it, so you can actually hold this up angrily very nicely. So that's the maximum angle you can go, and we'll just bring this thing back up of here. Now we're just going to have a quick look at some of these menus here. Now on the top left here, on the left controller, now this is the button that I'm a bit kind of, I have a love-hate relationship with this button here. Now this is the Legion software itself. It helps with updating and also some of the settings, and also it's the store of the Legion as well. So as this loads up, we can wait for this to come through. Now you can see all the things. You can also scroll down, as this is a touch screen. You can buy more games if you want, but really it's about customizing of, you can customize the sort of home screen here, but really I'm actually after this settings here. Now this settings here is pretty much the settings of this Legion Go. It's very, you can run through a lot of the Windows settings through this as well, but really the most important part of this one here, which I find is really the only one I really would use, is about the controller, because this is the only place I found the controller settings here. And you can change these controllers here. At the moment set to like sort of Xbox. It's really nice that any of the games, it automatically works out going to controller mode, or you got once you're in FPS mode, it actually changes to like a keyboard and mouse situation. Very nice. It does it so seamlessly by itself. You can set the dead zones on these joypads, and also adjust the sensitivity here. And this is where you can actually enable and disable the touch pad here, and also vibration here. You can change some of these searching here, as you can see, and then update these ones. It also tells you the battery life on these here. And that's really the most use of this button here. Now for me, as you probably talk about later on, is that I wish there was a virtual keyboard button. And I think because I've accidentally pressed this a few times, this actually gets you out of the game, really annoying, but it also gets you back in the game as well. So it's kind of like Alt Tab. But really, I like to actually customize this button. I couldn't find a way to actually customize this button here. I would actually like to say, if I could customize this button, I would actually make that button as a dual purpose button. One, to either just as a quick tap, it will actually bring up the virtual keyboard, and if you hold it for longer, it actually brings the Legion Go. This sort of menu here, I think that would be an absolute ideal situation where you can actually double use this button here. Now on the right hand side, this is another button that I use quite a lot, which is the quick settings here, and this is where you can actually get to change to different performance mode. At the moment it's the power saving G mode, which you can customize. It remembers it. At the moment I set it to this G power saving. For me it's just balance and just clean. So to give you a quick idea, now once you can move between the different performance mode very quickly. Now if you press on the left side of that top left button, and it goes to performance mode. Now within performance mode, I've set to both from performance and thermal mode, and also the power mode. Now you can also switch on the full fan speed manually, as you can hear. You'll probably hear that a little bit. Now there is a little bit of whine there, but I still find it very nice compared to a lot of other laptops I've actually noticed on full fan speed anyway. So I'm just going to turn that off. Now I just want to quickly show you the red, that it's actually now in performance mode. Now I also want to add in a little extra bit in the thermal mode here. You can actually click on the custom. Now in custom is where you can actually change the TDP, or the thermal mode, for this Z1 processor or Z1 Extreme processor, 5 watts custom savings, or you can go the full blown 30 watts, which allows the processor to go at its maximum potential. And this is where here, and when you see that, it actually goes purple for its maximum potential. So you can actually set that, and you can actually see it and leave it as the performance mode. So if I just click on this, you'll see this now go to white, and that's the power saving. That's my power saving that I've saved. Now I'm going to switch to power performance mode, and you see that's automatically remembered that it's gone to 30 watts, and it's in purple mode, which I'll have got set for this custom mode. But if I change it back to red mode, actually now it remembers the red mode. I'll just change that over here. Now it's back to white, and then I'll just move back to performance. As you can see, it still remembers all that rather than having custom. So this actually remembers the different power schemes on the fly. Just for this power saving, I'll go back to power saving here. Now you can also just change again some resolution, refresh rates very quickly. This is a nice little quick menu. I'm just going to go through this very quickly on this. You can change just a quick few settings on these here. Again, that's why I said the controller pad is also double up here. So I don't think I kind of need this button here because it can actually be done over here. Now, this is the one I would say will be very useful. You can have something that's the biggest, most useful for me is this virtual keyboard from this menu here. Now I can also change the productivity. Now I can change about when you have a docking station connected or a display connected to it. That's about it. And that's pretty much it for this button here. Overall, very generally nice to use. Now, just to let you know that you can actually get into the BIOS of this Legion Go, and I'll just show you to that. So just on this recovery settings, go to the advanced setup. I'm going to restart now to try and get into the BIOS, and we're going to get this going here just to show you can actually have a look how to do this. Now this is also a very useful way of doing it into the BIOS for a lot of modern laptops as well, because sometimes getting either the special function keys or the F10s or F12s, or maybe it's delete. There's different ways to get it, but if you go through Windows 11 or Windows 10, you can just go to recovery and just go to advanced startup, and that's better. That's what we're going to do right now, and I'll just show you this as we're going to let this Legion boot up. Now interesting, it goes into a sideways here, but I'll just kind of turn this up so you kind of can see it, but really it's just going to troubleshoot, advanced options, and go down to UEFI firmware settings. Click on that and go restart. Now once you do the restart, this will then go into BIOS mode here. Now we're going to have a look at what the BIOS will look like, and you will see this, and this is actually the BIOS. It actually looks very pretty. Now just going through the BIOS itself, I'm just going to go more settings here. It actually looks really good compared to some of the other ones I've seen here. Now going through the actual down to configurations, can I go through this way here? No, it's just going to be all touch here now. Anyway, so configurations, you can just do your normal configurations, wireless. You can change some of these things here. Just giving a quick scroll so you can just have a look at this. You can see the thermal settings and the one key button, self-healing BIOS is really cool. BIOS here. Now I'm just going to show you one of the things you'll see just very quickly. Security here. You can set some BIOS passwords as well, which is very like a business laptop you can do. And what really cool thing is I know this is going to be asked me, is the boot. You can do USB boot. You can actually enable that, so you can actually have a USB driver or thing. You can also do Pixie boot, which is really cool. So imagine that you can do Pixie boot, which is actually really great for businesses to actually be able to boot this off either SCCM if you really wanted to. The fact that you actually have USB boot and also Pixie boot, you can actually load another OS on this. Like for example, you want to load up some sort of distro of Linux, this is able to do that. So you're not actually constrained to having Windows on this. I'm not saying you should, but it just gives you the ability to be able to do that. It's because of the fact that you can do a USB boot. That's going to be awesome. I don't know if the drivers are there for Linux or something like that, but mate, this is absolutely fantastic. So just to let you have some control of this, and even in BIOS. One of the cool things about the Legion Go, and I think this is really innovative of Lenovo doing this, as no other handheld has this function, is besides your normal ability of your handheld, which you can actually control both left and right, and you can actually detach the controllers, which just like the Switch. Now, I'm just turning around just to show you that how that happens, is these buttons here, you just hold them down, and then I'll just do it on this side here. Just hold them down and you can then just push down. It's very easy to release. And see now I've detached them both. So you can actually still, I'll just move this across here, and you can still see that I'm actually still able to move my character around in the game. Now this is not so different there, but what's really innovative here, I'm just going to move this across here, is Lenovo actually included this nice little attachment here. Now what you're wondering what this attachment does is on the right controller, at the very bottom of the right controller, there is a switch, and that is just giving that a nice little flick. This actually changes to what they call FPS mode. And what's this FPS mode? You can just chuck this onto this device here, and now look at this. Now this actually becomes, I'll just move this across so you guys can see this a little bit better, is this now becomes like a vertical mouse. Now, I think this is pretty awesome. I think I've got to give kudos for Lenovo for thinking about being innovative of this idea and not other things. So you can now try and play your FPS game. Now, I'm just playing Hogwarts, very similar to that, as I'm not very good with controllers, as I'm very nice, but as a mouse movement control, this is actually really cool to do. Now, I am typically ergonomic or vertical mouse. So this is my daily driver as a mouse. That's kind of what it is. So I'm very used to this sort of vertical sort of type of system. Now, just to give you an idea of what vertical does, and you'll see this, is that there is actually a little lean to the actual hold of the vertical mouse, and this is an ergonomic mouse that you actually do usually try and find if you've got wrist pains like I do. This is kind of this. So, and you'll find that I'm actually now very nicely in. This is kind of what I'm actually used to. Now, I think with this one here, this is just some things that I've noticed as improvements that could be made, is that with this here, we'll find that when we're gripping this, now of course we're gripping, I'm gripping this way. I'm just going to try and make that vertical. Instead of gripping sort of this way like a normal ergonomic mouse, I'm actually gripping this way up here. So I'm already twisting my wrists here. Now, not only am I twisting my wrists here, I'm also pressing it downwards here because of the actual face. Now, this is also in, and then you'll find that I'm kind of like dragging a little bit of my bottom of my wrist here along the surface. Now, I've just got a mouse pad here, so this is not going to be exaggerated as much, but if I'm on a raw, rougher surface, you'll find that actually going to start really be not as nice comfortable. And if you're in a more shallow sort of table, especially when you're outdoors, I've noticed that, is that you actually you start to lift your wrist up, well, lift your arm up as you're trying to do, and you'll be trying to move that around here. Now that becomes really more uncomfortable as that becomes, so, and just sort of movement here. Now, what Lenovo could do to maybe enhance the ability, I think this is a great idea. What they could try to do is actually just give a little bit more angle, just like about 3 to 5 degrees, just a little bit more for me, and that could be just improvement of just add for this attachment. I don't need to do too much to this, just a little improvement, just to give more angle. And what that does will actually lift your wrist up a little bit, and that would still keep your whole elbow, your whole arm straight. So that would actually be good, and I think that would be a lot more comfortable in that sort of style. And also then you can actually, rather than have it straight, maybe have it hooked in a little bit to the side just to give it a little bit, but I think that will be then determined on that thing there. So maybe I don't have to do the side, but I think that angle will definitely help out. Now, the other thing I've also noticed, and if you now I'm a right-hander here. Now, as a right-hander here, you'll find that the joystick is actually, as you hold on to this, that joystick is going to be pushing along your palm area. Now, boy, pushing on my palm area, now especially in FPS games, I am not an esport person. I actually get really intense when I'm in a really intense fight. I start to grip hard onto the mouse itself. Now, and that's the same thing, I feel the same when I'm gripping on this I start pushing on, and I'm afraid that sometimes I might actually, by pushing unnecessary pressure onto this joystick inwards, that I might be breaking things, loosening it up. It'd still be fine, but I think it's just my little, but I also find it actually overall, just generally, it's just not as comfortable having that joystick there pressing along me anyway, even just by pressing, even though I'm not trying to push too much thing, it's just not that comfortable here. Now, interestingly enough, the right controller, when you actually grip it, now I'm just going to try and keep it like this just to give you an idea. If I right controller here, now if I can press that really hard, that's actually really comfortable. That's actually because of the ergonomic design and shape of the right controller, sorry, the left controller. Now, the left controller here will be more ideal for a right-hander. So the right controller is actually really ideal for lefties. So this is absolutely fantastic. The only problem is you've got this the scroll wheel up here, which is just not ideal for a lefty, but still, this is a lot more nicer to grip and hold as a lefty, because I don't have that joystick pressing along my palm area. So if Lenovo can actually make the left controller for righties that can do it, that would be much more successful. Now, by doing that, I know the buttons aren't there, but if they add that button there for the left and right click, I think that would be a lot more comfortable by just doing similar thing with that, with the actual design of the buttons reflected on the lava side. And you know what, this button here, which I don't find really nice here, but to do that, if you make that as a scrolly wheel, that would be fantastic to feel, because then you still get those two idea of left and right click mouse, and then you go scroll, and this feels a lot more ergonomic and feels a lot better, and I can be really tense up and I won't feel it as bad compared to having the right controller be the mouse for it. So that's just my thoughts there anyway. Here's a top tip for those who are running in the FPS mode or having the right controller as a mouse mode, and that is some of the games you'll find that you actually need to actually use some of the keyboard commands or keep pressing some keyboards to actually, especially in menu systems here, as if you're in FPS mode, a lot of these buttons are either disabled or they just don't match with the mapping, as there might not be enough buttons to actually have the right buttons to actually be mapped on. What you will need is a keyboard. Now you can either have a Bluetooth keyboard, or sometimes if you're out and about where you don't have the Bluetooth keyboard with you, what you can do is on the right controller, you can quickly onto your quick settings here. Now you go down to the spanner, which is the system quick settings, go down to virtual keyboard, and then you can press, now I'm going to press a V because that was a top tip here. So if I press V and I'll press that, you'll see that pop up because it initiated that V, which I could not do in any of these buttons here. Now this is very good for when you're trying to get into menus, as you're going to go through there, around that. So that's something I think would be. But what would be really nice, I think, for Lenovo to do is actually have a physical button on, maybe on the keyboard screen, or somewhere you can design it in the actual controllers, a physical key button where you can actually press, and then the virtual keyboard will automatically come up, so you don't have to go through this menu system 3 or 4 touches to get to the virtual keyboard. That can actually be here. Maybe you can put it up here, around up here. That would be a nice spot to actually put an extra key or button where you can initiate the virtual keyboard, especially when in FPS mode, or even when just generally. I think it's just great to have another physical keyboard just to bring up the virtual keyboard. So that's just an idea. Lenovo's really nice. They actually supply a protective carry case with every Legion Go. Now this is what I'll say a soft shell case, and it's actually very light. It's got a nice handle here, it's got 2 zips, and you can see the logo of the Legion. Now inside here you actually see it's got a bit of air. That'd be nice if they can actually give you a bit of a cutout so you can actually access underneath, and you can put other store stuff, maybe SD cards or other stuff, maybe keys or something like that, you can carry around, as is a really nice case to carry around. But unfortunately it's all sealed. Now you can see all the cutouts perfectly for the Legion Go. Now underneath the bottom here you'll see that cutout, and there's actually a way that you can install the mouse accessory for right controller to change the FPS mode. And then we've got a nice little strap, and you'll probably wonder what this strap is for. Basically, if you slip here and then put your Legion Go right down there, and what this helps is just to help to lift it up, makes it easier to open it so you don't have to tip it across to get things across. Now that's really nice how that's all designed. And if you look on the other side here, and here at the bottom here, you actually got this little flap. You wonder what this hole is for. This is actually allow you to actually charge the Legion Go. So I'm just going to pop this back in. Let me put this back this way here. Pop this back in. Now I'm just going to try and kill it. Now if I just open this up like this, you'll see it directly aligns with the USB port. So you can actually charge this. I've got a power bank here. And you can actually charge this directly while this is actually connected to a power bank, and you can charge this while it's actually stored in the thing. Now one of the things I like to see is, this is actually a very nice protected case. What would be nice to see is on the back, if they can actually have a little slip hole or something so that I can actually store, like slip this or store a power bank. Would be nice to rather than have to carry 2 things like this. As you can see, it's not that annoying, but it's just nice to have maybe a slip sort of added, a little slip. I can actually slip this in for a power bank. Will be absolutely fantastic. I can actually use it to store other stuff as well too. But very nice to store a power bank, but to hold, and you can see that's a really nice sort of system there. Fantastic job Lenovo on having a protective carry case with all Legion Go's. There are 2 speakers located on top of the display on either side, and when I tested out the maximum volume of the speakers, it managed to measure a peak of 78.5 0.7 decibels. I consider these quiet speakers. It's fine when you're indoors in a quiet area, but when you're outdoors environment, you're going to start struggling a bit to hear these speakers. It's lucky they actually include a headphone jack, and I think that's what they're trying to point at when you're outdoors, but it's just nice to have a little bit more volume in the future. As for the sound quality of speakers, I would consider these kind of like a base model business laptop speakers. Nothing really outstanding. It's balanced to the mids. It's got some decent clarity out of the speakers, and there's a little amount of bass. But overall, this is probably an area where Lenovo could massively improve on the speakers, not only just the sounding quality of the speakers, but more so about the volume of the speakers. The Legion Go comes with a 49.2 watt-hour battery, and when I tested out the battery life, it managed to achieve 6 hours and 23 minutes in modern office battery life test in PC Mark 10, 2 hours for gaming, and 6 hours and 14 minutes for video playback in Procom battery life tests. It does have a rapid charging, which means you can charge for about 30 minutes and you get from 0 to about 70%, and it takes about 80 minutes to charge from 0 to 100%. Looking at temperatures and fan noise of the Legion Go, when I took my measurement, the ambient temperature in the room was 25 degrees Celsius. And just to give you a reference point for those that's new to this channel, my hand is anywhere between 34 to 35 degrees Celsius at this room temperature. So you can hopefully give an idea how hot or how cool this device could be. So I took my base measurement when the device was idle, and the hottest area around the front side of the device measured a maximum of 43 degrees Celsius. And as for the back side, it measured a maximum of 41 degrees Celsius. And as for the fan noise, it hit a maximum of 36 decibels, which is practically silent. And average internal core temperature was 39 degrees Celsius. Then I put 20% load on the device. That's pretty much light tasks such as office activity work, surfing the web, streaming videos, and the hottest area around the device on the front and back measured in a maximum of 43 degrees Celsius. And as for the fan noise, it didn't change at all. It stayed at 36 decibels, and the average internal core temperature was 41 degrees Celsius. Then I'll put 50% load on the device, and the hottest area around the front side of the device stayed at 43 degrees Celsius. As for the backside, it did increase to a maximum of 48 degrees Celsius. As for the fan noise, it still stayed at 36 decibels, and the average internal core temperature was 46 degrees Celsius. Then I'll put 100% load on the device with the thermal mode set to balance, and the hottest area around the front side of the device measured a maximum of 45 degrees Celsius. And as for the back side of the device, it measured a maximum of 53 degrees Celsius. As for the fan noise, it did increase to a maximum of 37 decibels. So still very quiet device, and the average internal core temperature was 57 degrees Celsius. While I still had 100% load, I changed to performance mode, and the hottest area around the front side measured a maximum of 49 degrees Celsius. And as for the back side, it did drop down to a maximum of 50 degrees Celsius. As for the fan noise, it did increase to a maximum of 38 decibels, still not that loud at all. And as for the average internal core temperature, hit a maximum of 69 degrees Celsius. And while I still had the 100% load on, I then changed to custom mode and enabled the 30 watt and put the fan speed at full. The hottest area around the front area measured a maximum of 50 degrees Celsius. And as for the back side, it measured a maximum of 51 degrees Celsius. And as for the fan noise, hit a maximum of 45 decibels. Now, this is a big increase, but still at 45 decibels, not that crazy loud at all compared to a lot of other laptops, and the average internal core temperature was 80 degrees Celsius. Despite all these temperatures, the controllers pretty much stay the same. They don't increase in temperatures, so you actually don't feel any of this heat in handheld mode. And even if you had your fingers wrapped around and touching the back of it where you would normally holding this controllers, you still don't actually feel those heat. So you can comfortably play on the Legion Go for many hours without feeling the actual temperature from this device. Just to give you a bit of a heads up, there is a little bit of a high pitch whine that comes from the fan, even at low speeds. Maybe this is something that could be improved on by Lenovo, but if just for the lower speeds. But at the full speed of the fan, that's kind of expected. I'm not really annoyed by it, as I've listened to a lot of other fans which have much higher pitch whine than this coming from the Lenovo Go. But this is also a personal preference. I also like to mention that the actual exhaust being blown up here, it does blow outwards, upwards. Let's have a look at the performance of the processor for long duration tasks. Now this Legion Go is configured with a Ryzen Z1 Extreme. Now the AMD website reports that this processor has a base clock speed of 3.3 gigahertz. So we want to see this at 3.3 gigahertz or above. Now I've got pretty much tasks that's been running for over an hour, and that's pretty much maxing out the system resources for the processor, memory, and storage. And I can see the speed of the processor is ranged between 3.5 to about 4 gigahertz. Now that is way above than the base clock speed of 3.3 gigahertz, which is absolutely fantastic to see. And I can see the temperature of the processor is hitting about 89 degrees Celsius. Now it is able usually for these processors can go up to 100 degrees Celsius, so we've still got about 10 degrees Celsius as leeway. Now that is absolutely fantastic. Now this device is not designed for these long duration tasks like this that's maxing out like crazy. Now I do have this set to 30 watt in the thermal mode, and of course we're in performance mode. So, and we got the full fan turned on at the moment, which is absolute fantastic. Now I'm just going to quickly switch off the full fan, just let it run, see what difference we can make on this. So this will now maybe bring down some of the speed. If it does, it doesn't really show it right now, pointing to the thing, as it is still running at close to about 3.8 gigahertz. Absolute fantastic. That is way above the base clock speed and hitting very high clock speeds at the moment, even for this. So I'm very, very impressed. I can now start to see the actual processor now just coming up a little bit in temperature, but still it's able to maintain that high speed. Now this Legion Go is not designed for these sort of tasks like that. So absolute fantastic work on the thermal system from both AMD and also Lenovo. Here's the results of the benchmarks performed on the Legion Go. Here's the results for Passmark, Citybench R23, Citybench R24, 3D Mark, PC Mark, Crossmark, Crystal Disk Mark, Geekbench 5, Geekbench 6, Geekbench ML, Procon Office, Procon Photo Edit, Procon Video Edit, Puget Photoshop, Puget Lightroom, Puget Premiere Pro, Puget DaVinci Resolve, Blender, Luxmark, Eugene Engine, and SpecView Pref. And some gaming benchmarks like Fronza 5, F1 2022, F1 2023, Cyberpunk 2077. The Lenovo Legion Go, what an insane handheld gaming device this is. I'm gonna put a slash in there and go handheld gaming / laptop device, as the features of this, as well as the functionality, and also the fact that it's got Windows, can be a personal laptop replacement as well. That's just fantastic. Lenovo did not cheap out on the specs on this. It's giving you 16 gigs of memory, which is just probably more than a lot of personal laptops on the market for its very competitive pricing. And they've actually given you the ability to actually upgrade the internal storage, and they've actually given you a micro SD card slot, which as a top tip, you can put a micro SD card in there. You got more storage on the fly without being annoyance or in the way, and it's absolutely fantastic for content creators such as myself here. And as for the performance of this, the fact that this AMD Ryzen Z1 and Z1 Extreme has onboard graphics, which is the Radeon graphics, I'm able to play AAA games. I may actually have to bring them down to medium or high, but I'm able to play AAA games on this very smoothly on battery, on a handheld like such as this. Absolute wow, absolutely insane here. So I was very mind blown by the fact I can play a lot of these AAA games like Hogsworth, Diablo 4, Frontier 5, very smoothly, very smooth. I was just absolutely great, and I had really enjoyed my time playing. I just wasted a lot of time playing a lot of games on this handheld device. Now, the fact that the temperatures are so well controlled, I can't even feel any of the temperatures as when I'm holding the actual controls. I don't feel any part of the temperatures here, so much that I pretty much game on this all the way to the battery die, which is about 1 to 2 hours depending on the power scheme you run this at, and it is a very quiet device here. You don't really hear the fan go off unless you tell the fan to go on full power mode, and even then it's still not a very loud fan in the first place there. So absolutely fantastic. You've got very nice features such as this detachable controllers and the right fact that the right controller can actually become a mouse, and you just need a Bluetooth keyboard, or you can use the onboard keyboard, the virtual keyboard, and you've got this laptop that's just this multi-functionality, be absolutely fantastic. Got a kickstand here, and it is just a well-built system here. Just feels really well built. I just felt every part of this fantastically here. I did not have any issues on this at all. The only thing I think that could be improved is just the speakers here, as it would be nice to have a little bit more volume out of the speakers, and it would also be nice if we can actually have maybe a button just to bring up the virtual keyboard. Would be nice here. But else, I had such a wonderful time on this, and I can't recommend this enough to anyone, as this is such a fantastic device to actually have. Now, I hope you find this video informative and enjoyed it. If you did even support my channel, smash that like button for me. Share this video. I do try to upload a new video every week. And as always, imperfections in life makes it beautiful and interesting. And I'll see you next video.